I'm Sel, welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm planning on walking you through an animation I did about a week and a half ago and explaining my process and what I learned through it. So I hope you enjoy. I started off basically just wanting to get the idea down. I knew how I wanted the magic to look. I had seen a few videos of people dancing or just preparing, like using references as magic poses, if that makes sense. And so I had an idea of what I wanted, and I just sort of put it onto the page. I have a mirror right in front of my desk that I use to help me with all of my my animation references, and so I kind of worked out that pose in my head, and then I kind of just started going for it in terms of impact frames. I didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew that I wanted it to change perspective, and I know that when you watch an impact frame it kind of flashes between black and white, or so it seems. So that's sort of just the original approach that I took to it. I added the magic to the hands and sort of, made the blast. The blast itself I knew how to do from a few previous tutorials, so it wasn't something that I struggled too much with. And then I watched a few tutorials on how to do impact frames, and I realized that I've been going about it wrong, and so I sort of figured out how I wanted the movement of the beam to go, and instead of doing flashes between black and white, I sort of followed the motion and did more black versus a more white balanced image. It looks like a flash when you run it through, but it isn't actually. And so you kind of go between light shading, light darkness, to very thick darkness, and it has the illusion of a flash, but really you're keeping the same forms and the same colors, basically the same. So I kind of just went through it like that. It was very difficult to get the flow of motion to look correctly. I ended up having to redo it because it just looked wrong. And then I gave up for a little bit and decided to just figure out how I wanted the ending shots to look. I designed that dummy and tried to get a little bit more perspective involved in the thing itself. As you can see, I actually fully drew the character for this because I don't know why. But I continued. I tried to get a cool looking blast, and when I ran it through, I don't know if it'll show it, but it just kept looking wrong, so I had to keep adding and adding and adding, and it just, I don't know, something about it just never really clicked with me. I tried to add more impact to the dummy itself, and I just thought that the flash was looking too long. The impact frames themselves were just taking too much screen time up. So I took a break and stopped focusing too much on that and added some fun things. This animation is an animation of an Eldrich blast from D&D. It's my D&D character, and so I tried to add Eldrich bits, and then I went through and I added some in-betweens to make the movement with her arms feel a lot more natural, because by this point it looked very static, and it didn't really feel like it flowed well. So I just kind of added those in-betweens. It wasn't too difficult. I have been studying a lot of anatomy. Weirdly enough, this process helped my understanding of anatomy a lot. Actually rotating the shoulders and realizing that the circle body method actually does work for me, where in the past it hadn't. It was fun. As you can see, the impact frame blast itself didn't really look that good. It didn't make much sense. So I kind of just ignored it for the time being and focused on making sure that the magic looked cooler. I added some drippiness and some I don't know, I was working on special effects. I tried to make it look cool and shiny. I don't have any experience in making that kind of magic or special effect look, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I realized exactly how I needed to be working these impact frames, which is that you need to be animating it first and then go over with the impact frame after, because in almost every single tutorial I've seen online or in various places, especially with people who aren't as confident with impact frames, they can't just go for it. You animate the entire scene and then you add the impact frames on top to make sure that it still flows right. And that's essentially what I was doing here. I struggled a lot with this particular part with the ending, and the perspective shift itself from the front view to this back view was very difficult for me to get a handle on. I spent a really long time just trying to make sure that I could understand how it worked, and in the end I went for that kind of over and back look on the camera. I spent also a long time trying to make sure that the dummy looked better, and by this point that's where I was. I tried to animate the scene in the magic first and then went back through with the impact frames. I ended up screwing around with a lot of different things. I kept going back and forth between this and the ending and this and the ending to try and make sure that it all flowed well. To be honest, in the end, I didn't really like the result, but there are a few things that I learned through this process. Like, for one, the impact frames don't need to be so long. They really should be a lot shorter. It's meant to be the brightest moment, and so in general, with someone who's not as experienced like me, clearly, you will want to keep your impact frames a lot more small and sprinkled in there. It makes it look a lot cleaner, and then you should spend the time animating everything else and making sure it's good, because I just couldn't really animate that perspective shift anyway, and so I had a really hard time animating the impact frame at the end. So that's what I ended up with. I will play it a few times. So yeah, that's what I ended up with. That's what I learned through this process. I hope you enjoyed this 5 minutes or 5 or so minutes of me just explaining my process, and I hope that helps any other animators out there. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye. Have a nice day.